This is our 5th Friday coffee, and again, thank you to everyone that has joined us today. We're really excited about today's topic. The way this will work is we have Lieutenant Governor Kehoe until, as he said earlier, 9:42, and then he has to hop off on a conference call, and then he also has session that starts at 10 o'clock today, and they have a small little task of approving the budget. So we probably should let him off the line on time. And then after that, we do have Mayor Tergin with us as well. So then we will turn from state issues more to local issues. So be thinking about your questions. I will be monitoring our chat room. So if you have a question, you can either send it to me privately or you can send it to everyone, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. So again, thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for being with us today. I know that you have been working, like Christy Campbell, very tirelessly through the last, let's say, 7 weeks since March 15th, when all of this really kind of came to fruition. And we are so proud that one of our own is out there representing our city, our county, especially our state. And thank you for all of your hours and for giving up all of your time with your family. And I know that you've been putting in lots of time. Initially, I got to work with you a little bit, just a little sliver of, I know you were looking for some PPE products, working with some of our local companies, looking for bottles, looking for hand sanitizer and all kinds of issues. And so I got to work with you a little bit. You would call me nights, weekends, and again, I know that you are in contact with a lot of other people as well. So thank you for that. And so I'm going to just kind of turn it over to you and let you kick it off and just kind of give us a general overview on where we are today.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, and happy Friday coffee to everybody, Missy, and to all your great members. As everybody knows in this call, I'm a huge believer in what chambers do for a community, especially our chamber, which happens to be the best one in the state, I think. You know, I tell every chamber that every day, by the way, just in case you're wondering. And so I just wanted to real quickly, we were kind of joking before everybody got on the call. I wanted people to hear from me. I also deal with a lot of county health directors around the state and have, especially in this time, interacted with quite a few counties. And we were talking about Christy Campbell, who you had on last week. I believe she's on the call today. And I said to Missy and to Mayor Tergin, we have a rock star and a county health department director. And I can tell you that Christy Campbell is probably, if not the best, one of the top 1 or 2 in the state. And that includes Kansas City and St. Louis. So a shout out to Christy Campbell for her and her staff for handling this the way they've done. They've made some very tough decisions, sometimes not popular. I get that. But she had everybody's best interest at heart. And so, Christy, I just want to say quickly, thank you to Christy Campbell, to Mayor Tergin for her leadership. She's done great. We call her in the office, Carrie doesn't know this, but we call Carrie in the office, her nickname is the cheerleader. So whenever she calls or leaves me a message, Todd or Adam or Amy says the cheerleader called, so then I always know who that is. And you know, Carrie, that's a compliment because you're so energetic and so much cheerleader for Jefferson City. So thank you both for having me on. Well, yeah, I'll answer questions, but just quickly an update, as Missy mentioned, the budget. Conference committees met last night into the night to House and Senate approves their different positions on the budget. The budget is well over $30 billion this year because of federal money that are coming in with the CARES Act, et cetera. So it's a big budget. Unfortunately, we have some budget challenges before us, not only this year, but likely very much next year as well, because we're kind of always a year lagging behind. The good news is the federal government has kicked in some money, and the other good news is I think Missourians are ready to go back to work, and we've opened up the state, as Governor Parsons said a week ago, or just this past week, to encourage Missourians to get back out and get engaged in the economy. Do it safely. Remember the things that we've been working on the last 60 days, whether it's social distancing, whether it's covering your mouth when you cough, whether it's keeping your hands clean, so basic hygiene. We need to gradually get our economy going back on. It's not a light switch, it's a faucet. So we're going to kind of turn it on and get going. Through the COVID crisis, Missy, to your point, we've been working with a lot of great companies across the state on various PPE items, just different opportunities where we had shortages, where we needed companies that could help us out. The response was inspiring. I can tell you that I talked to potentially 100 different companies. It's safe to say several dozens. And every person ever called, nobody ever said no. When I first called you and we were in a real big hurry, hand sanitizers, everybody knows, still short today, but really short when this all started hitting. We had different companies, Department of Corrections, J. Rieger Distillery in Kansas City, Wood Hat up on Highway 70, a whiskey manufacturer. Lots of those companies were switching over to make hand sanitizer. Nobody had bottles. And so Missy helped hook me up with Alpla here in town. And I mean, within days, we had bottles coming from Alpla. And, you know, when I asked him, I said, you know, what about the bill? How do we pay for it? He said, oh, we'll just worry about that later. But that was the typical response I got from just about any manufacturer anywhere around the state, or anybody who wanted to help, who said, we want to do our part. We needed a place for the Alpla bottles to land before we could send them to corrections. We needed an address in 2 minutes. Calls, I had to find some loading dock right while I had somebody else on the phone. Called Ducto Beverage, like, we'll do whatever we can, send them here. So boom, we sent the bottles over there. Needed a label to go on them where corrections was making them. Call the company up in St. Louis, General Credit Farms. Boom, we'll make a label. We'll send them overnight down to the corrections facility. So it's been inspiring to hear some of these stories of what we call Missouri greatness, Mo greatness. So I just had a great time working with these companies through an unfortunate situation. Just a couple of other things. I know Diane Gillespie is probably either listening or on the call and very aware. One of the big hits to our economy is something that's near and dear to my heart and near and dear to Jefferson City's heart, is our tourism industry. Clearly, agriculture is our #1 industry. I'm involved in some conversations with that food supply chain as well that I can talk about later if somebody wants to. But our #2 industry is tourism, and tourism assets across our state are suffering and now figuring out a way to safely reopen. I'm happy to announce that tourism originally had a 50% cut when it came over from the House. The Senate took that up. They understand how important tourism is. Actually, it's one of the line items in our budget that gives a return on investment to the state. Every dollar that you put into our tourism economy returns 3 to 4 times back into our economy. So we went from a 50% cut to fully restoring the tourism budget in the Senate. And then in conference last night, we ended up with about a 10, maybe 12% cut, but that's all right. We'll manage that. That's certainly better than the 50% cut that we had coming down the pike. So we're going to be able to promote Missouri tourism assets. And I just want to say to the folks on this call, the reason we believe that's important in this building, not just because of the jobs, 301,000 Missourians work directly for the tourism industry. We brought 42 million visitors into our state last year. But we think that just looking at it from a business case, people are probably going to be a little hesitant to fly. And, you know, I don't want that to affect airlines. It's just a fact that people are going to be a little hesitant. And the other thing is they might not have the money to go on long trips right now. I mean, you know, families are going to be, budgets are going to be tight. We understand that. Missouri's in the perfect spot to take advantage of that. We got low gas prices. It's easy to get to places. We got very accommodating events, everything different from caves to aquariums to you name it. We have canoe rentals to, I mean, just, we have the whole gamut here in Missouri. So we're going to really promote our tourism assets, not just only to Missourians who can take that affordable staycation, we call it, the extended 1-day, 2 or 3-day trip, but to some of our surrounding states. Since we're in Jefferson City, I always make fun of Kansas. They got nothing going on over there. So we need to bring those Kansas and Iowans down into Missouri along with our own people and really help get our tourism industry kick-started again. So that's been a big focus of this office. The Tourism Commission started a tourism task force. We have 16 organizations from around the state working on different ways to get our tourism economy open back up. So we spent a lot of time on that. So we spend lots of our time on business issues and tourism issues as we go through this. And just thankful for the governor's leadership. I'll just end before we start taking questions that I would just tell a lot of people on this call I know very well and I've worked with for a long, long time. And, you know, politics is not a great business to be in, really. I thought I was just an okay business person until I got into politics, and I figured out I was a much better business person than I was a politician. But, you know, when you're in politics, and you make policy decisions, the governor or me or any one of our great senators or representatives, you get criticized from people because they say, well, you listen to the big lobbyists, you listen to a special interest group, you listen to one of your donors. When you have a crisis like COVID, there's none of those people weighing in. You got to rule from the heart. And so what you see Governor Parson doing and different members of his administration, we're trying to make the best decisions from our heart. And there's no influence coming from some outside group. So it's very tough because those decisions, as you know, Christy Campbell, Mayor Tergin can tell you, others that are on the call that have been involved in some of these things, you know, you make just as many people mad as you do happy every time you make one of these decisions. But if you go from your heart, you try to do what you think is best for Missourians, and then now what's best for our economy to creep back into this. You know, a little bit of faith in God. That's just how you move through this thing. It's a tough one, but we're going to get through it, and we're going to be absolutely 100% better on the other side of it. And that's my prediction.
We have appreciated Governor Parson's leadership, and you know, I can't even imagine the hours that he's put in, his daily press conferences that he has had. And if you guys saw the News Tribune this morning, he was in 2 of our retailers yesterday, Hy-Vee and Orscheln. And you know, I know that he's, of course, you know, very interested in getting retail back at it and open and get the economy moving as quickly as possible. Of course, the doom and gloom this morning in the paper as well and all over the radio is that, you know, our unemployment rate is at 14.7%, the largest hit that we've taken since the Great Depression in the 1940s. And I think they said 20.5 million jobs that we lost in April. So going forward, Mike, you know, and looking at the long-term economy, you know, I think we had just gotten up to our jobs, you know, maybe even slightly less than where we were 10 years ago, before that 07 recession. So just going forward, I mean, what do you think May is going to look like, June? You know, do you have any predictions on how high that unemployment rate is going to go? And, you know, talk to us a little bit about the potential of getting those jobs back.
Yeah, well, I think there's some good news there. I just want people to understand, again, it's not going to be a light switch. It's going to be a faucet. A lot of those jobs are in the service sector. And so restaurants, hotels, et cetera, imagine all those venues, airlines, et cetera. Just to give you a little statistic about airlines, Jason Van Eaton, many people know them. He's former Kit Bond's chief of staff, is now with Southwest Airlines. He was telling me a statistic the other day that in many days in April, where we typically have 2.5 million Americans on an airplane, there were several days where we didn't have 25,000. So when you start thinking about airline industry, hotel industries, any service industry, restaurant industry, et cetera, there's where a huge chunk of that job loss is. And now that we're kind of opening things back up, you're going to start seeing some of those people kind of get back to work. Certainly many of those companies were able to take advantage of the PPE program. I'll tell our viewers today that Missouri was the 8th best state to take advantage of that. In the first round, we had well over $7.4 billion come into our state's economy to keep Missourians a paycheck in their hand, which is what that program is designed to do. So that was helpful some. But now as we open that faucet up, get some of that service economy going back again. Again, it won't happen overnight. I think that will be a good news story for us. The other thing is you've seen the auto manufacturers are announcing that they're going to be coming back in, you know, in late May, and the supply chain and the automotive manufacturing impact just on Missouri, and not to mention our entire country, is significant. We have over 13,000 suppliers that supply the Ford and GM process plants here and plants across the nation. So if you take all the supply chains as well as our 2 big assembly plants, everybody knows I'm just a little partial to Ford. Clay Como just factually is Ford Motor Company's largest plant in the world. And so as we get those ramped back up, you'll see the automotive sector start going again. Some of those things, as we get some of that manufacturing kicked back going again, it's going to be a faucet, but I think you'll start to see people get back to work. And as people get back to work, those jobs, they start resuming those jobs, you know, that cures a lot of ills. So slow, but I think it will be steady.
So you mentioned the auto workers. What about healthcare workers? So, you know, in our community, we've had, you know, layoffs, furloughs from all of our big 3, JCMG, SSM, Cap Region. You know, Columbia's been hit as well in their healthcare. Talk to us a little bit about that sector and how you see them, coming back online.
Well, quickly before we say that, it is our appreciation week for medical workers, specifically and nurses as well. So everybody should thank anybody they know that's in the medical industry this week. Most of us have relatives or friends. And then tonight at 6 o'clock, B2 flyover in Jefferson City to say thank you to our frontline emergency medical workers. That's going to be super cool.
That is so cool. I love that.
I want everybody on this to spread that out through social media, because it'd be great to have folks out, not in huge groups, by the way, but folks out, applauding those B2s, because believe me, they'll be low enough to do that. Elective surgeries, as you know, was one of the big reasons.
Can I say something about the B2 bomber first?
You can say whatever you want.
I have the map of where they will be flying over Missouri, and we'll post that on social media today for you guys to see. I think that's going to be amazing. Great idea.
Can I say something about the B2 bombers?
Yes.
Oh, well, I flew the B2 test, the simulator up at Whiteman once, and I crashed into the Truman Building. And so they said, "Where do you want to fly?" So I want to fly over Jefferson City, and it wasn't a good outcome. So I will not be in the B2 bomber. But back to the healthcare, the elective surgeries was a huge piece, and you and I probably know I have friends and relatives who have that shoulder surgery, that leg or that arm or whatever they need done. All those were postponed. And so as we start getting those elective surgeries and people who have healthcare needs back into those hospital systems, there's some pent-up demand, according to Herb Kuhn at the Hospital Association. And so all these people for the last 60 days who wanted to get these aches and pains and different things worked out that haven't, they're now ready to go because they still have those aches and pains. Again, it won't be a light switch, but I believe in talking to Gasper and at Cap Region and folks over at SSM and the folks at JCMG, that as those elective surgeries start coming back in, I mean, people's health care hasn't gone away because we had COVID. It's just been postponed. So as we build that back up, I'm looking forward to those healthcare systems becoming more viable in their business model and being able to slowly bring a lot of those folks back.
So we do have a comment from Janet Weckenberg from Capital Region in our chat room, and she says that we are seeing our patient volumes begin to grow, and as they grow, they are able to bring staff back as well. So that's very promising. Mike, there is a question, since we're on the healthcare sector, what do you see for the future of long-term care and senior living communities in light of COVID? I know there's still, I think 100% of the nursing homes are still closed to the public. How do you see that kind of rolling out in this phased approach?
Yes, so as you know, the governor has clearly announced that month of May would be our phased one piece. And so the vulnerable population, we're still trying to go out of our way to protect those folks, and that includes our veterans homes and our senior living centers. We want to try to continue to do the best we can to make sure, as they're most susceptible to get COVID, that we try to protect them the best they can. I think eventually you'll see some phased in opening and visitations and different things to happen at those nursing homes. Claudia, many of you know my boss, Claudia, her and the First Lady last week went up to Mexico to visit the veterans home up there, and they did it virtually through the glass. And so they visited all the veterans through the window. It was kind of cool. They had a good time doing that. We're figuring out different ways. I celebrated a veteran down in Mount Vernon, Missouri's 104th birthday the other day through a Zoom call. And that veteran, I mean, I didn't know how to work Zoom because, you guys know I'm kind of clumsy. That old 104-year-old guy, he was saying, "No, punch that button in the right corner and then you can see me." And so it was fantastic. But we'll gradually but safely try to work with the Nursing Home Association, which is located here in Jefferson City, to make sure that we do the right thing for the residents and, more importantly, for the staff at those facilities. As a person who had a mother in a nursing home for 6 years, I can tell you the staff is overworked and they have real challenges in those homes. So we want to be as helpful as we can. There was some federal CARES money that actually went to nursing homes in our supplemental budget a few weeks ago. So we're going to gradually try to get those things back to where they can, function as a normal part of society. You're seeing some cool things. You've seen a lot on the news where they've had these drive-by parades from nursing homes and different things. We need to make sure we keep the staff and those residents up to speed. But as we phase open the economy, Nursing facilities will be one of those things. And last but not least, I would just mention testing. The governor announced the reopening of the state that has 4 pillars of his plan to open. And the number 1 pillar is testing. Missouri now has the capability of doing 50,000 tests per week. And by the way, when this thing started, we could do about 100 a week. And one of our best weeks was 2,500. So we've really upped the game. The reason that's important, and let me just tell you something, I have no vision. You see people on the news all the time saying, when are we going to have enough tests to test every American? My answer is never. It's not going to happen, so you might as well get over that. What we need to do is make sure we have enough tests, though, so when we have a breakout at a nursing home or what we saw up at Burger Smokehouse in California, we can go in and test the entire plant. Dr. Williams personally went up. I talked to Stephen and Philip Berger. We sent an entire team up there to test everybody in that plant. And once you find out who has the virus, even if they're asymptomatic, and we can keep them contained and they can self-quarantine, 80% of these cases plus can self-quarantine at home and recover from the virus. That's the way you prevent the spread. And I'm sure Christy Campbell would agree. Testing is the key, and it's the same for nursing homes. When a nursing home, and unfortunately we've seen this in our state and across the country, nursing homes get it and it spreads very quickly, which is a very vulnerable population. Being able to test those facilities, test the residents, test the staff, find out who has it, separate those, isolate, and go on will be the key to getting those facilities open back up.
So what about the vaccine? I think I heard on the radio that Pfizer is one of 4 companies that is currently working on the vaccine. Is that correct?
Let me tell you something. This is incredible. Missy, I know you and many people on this call so much believe in the importance of economic development. And I'm going to answer your question, but I want you to hear this cool story. I went to a ribbon cutting for Pfizer's world-class global research facility in Chesterfield, Missouri, about a year ago. It was just last spring that they opened that up. So Pfizer had a presence in Chesterfield, West St. Louis, for many years, and they do a lot of great things there. But through some economic development tools, the state and the county and St. Louis County provided them, they decided to locate their global research facility right here in Missouri. And everybody thought that was great at the time. Well, guess what? That's the place now that's coming up with these vaccines. It's incredible. Right here in Missouri. If people don't think economic development is a good investment, they need to get their head out of their sand. And I could say something other than sand, but I won't. Because there's an example. Not only was economic development returned to our state when they opened that facility, fantastic, but now look, it's almost a pinch me moment. Pfizer has identified Chesterfield as not only the place that's doing the research, but Pfizer is going to roll the dice. They've got 4, they call them clients. I call it recipes. They've got 4 different versions of a potential is a key word, cure for that they're going to make millions of doses of all 4, rolling the dice, in case one of them hits. And by the way, I've talked to Pfizer several times this week, and they do believe at least one of them will be the right mixture. They'll be ready. So FDA or whoever all of a sudden says, yep, that's the one. They're going to say, okay, we've got millions made. And guess what? And once they get there in 2021, they can make hundreds of millions of that remedy. And guess where it's going to be made? One of 3 sites in the United States, Chesterfield, Missouri. So, that's an incredibly proud moment for us as Missourians. It's an incredible story to talk about when you talk about economic development, the investment you get on economic development. It's just a good news story all around. I'm super proud of Pfizer and the folks there to choose Chesterfield as one of those sites.
As an economic developer, that does seriously give me goosebumps. And it will put, Missouri on the map. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So many people, state employees, everybody on this call had people working from home. A lot of people, I know a lot of the state employees are still working from home. Can you talk a little bit about that and going forward and kind of what the state's philosophy is about, state employees continuing working from home, not just during this COVID, but long term? And
well, yeah, I think.
And the second part of my question is, what about the infrastructure? Do you feel like the state has good broadband and good connectivity? I know in the last couple of years, the Department of Economic Development put in a Department of Broadband and hired a staff to, I know they have grants and technical assistance. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, let me answer your last question first. And this is no comment to our great internet provider companies in the city. Our internet sucks in Missouri. And so and it's not their fault, by the way. It's not a CenturyLink or Mediacom fault. We haven't invested in the backbone infrastructure, the pipeline, as I call it, to get the right bandwidth for these companies to then redistribute out to their clients. So I'm not blaming the provider that you pay your bill to each month. We need, as a state, to get better and more aggressive at doing that. And guess what's happened now through this crisis? Everybody and their brother, who, a third of us knew that before, now 100% of us know that now. And if you didn't know it, just have a couple of your kids home from school trying to study, yelling at you to get off of your Zoom call so they can listen to their professor teaching them college. So every household that has kids at home knows what I'm talking about, because that's happened in the last couple of months. But to your answer, yes, Adam Gresham in our office and I have been talking to, we call him the Internet Czar, that works for DED, and all kinds of people are starting to step up. We're finding out that Ameren and KCP&L, two large, everybody in this call would think utility electric providers, has what they call dark fiber in the new cable that they're putting up. They're putting up new electric lines that you see on a pole, and inside that electric line, there's fiber. And it's the only reason it's dark fiber because they're not using it right now. So trying to find out what tools, is there statutory issues or PSC issues in the way, right-of-way issues to allow them to start deploying some of the use of that fiber. That's all stuff that before people knew existed. They didn't really talk about. Front burner now, definite front burner. Ameren alone has 1,300 miles of dark fiber on lines already that nobody's using. It's just sitting there. It's like having a brand new Interstate 70, 20 miles north of our existing one, and there's not a car driving on it. Everybody think about that for a minute. So all of those conversations have now come to light, and the ability for us to improve the backbone of our infrastructure, so the CenturyLinks and the Mediacoms and the sockets and anybody you might be doing business with have availability to a larger pipe and a larger flow. That's all, that backbone now is helping a lot. And we've gotten some significant grants from the federal government, because guess, Missouri's not alone. We have a lot of states who are starting to really figure out that our internet reliability is not good. So that is one of the big things that's going to come out of this that's good for everybody. I think you're going to see reliability, bandwidth, speed, everything slowly but surely get a whole lot better in this country and in this state. As far as state workers are concerned, Commissioner Steelman, as most people know, born and raised Jefferson Cityan, she has state workers and the folks in her heart as much as anybody I've ever met in this job. And she's done a really good job of trying to, make sure they're safe and that their work environment is safe. And again, slowly but surely, as we get these buildings cleaned, reorganized, and cubicles redone, so we got right distancing, bring people back into work. And we have learned a vital lesson, many organizations have, on how better people can work from home. And I think that's one of the long-lasting pieces out of this economy, is that as we struggled just 90 days ago, we would have had the Zoom call. What would have been saying? I've got jobs, I can't find any employees, right? Everybody on this call, that's what they'd say. Anybody who owns a business say, I've got openings, I can't find anybody. Well, what we've learned through the COVID crisis now is how to become flexible and nimble. How can that working mom or working dad stay at home now and take care of the babies they just had and still do the work for Department of Revenue or for the Chamber of Commerce or for Joe Machin's Capital City Ford? Shameless plug, 0% for 72 months in case it, and Riley's got it too. I'm bipartisan on that. But there's a lot of things we're learning, all organizations are learning, but I think as we come out of this and we get employees back to work, and a year from now, I hope we're saying again, man, I've got jobs and I can't find anybody to fill it. I think you're gonna find the flexibility we discovered was possible during COVID is gonna end up helping us put more people to work in the long term.
So do you think that that will have an effect on, being the state capital, we have lots of state office buildings in Jefferson City. Do you think that's going to affect the bricks and mortar as far as the buildings long term?
Yeah, I don't want to be doom and gloom for the landlords that might be on this call, but I think all across the nation, by the way, many companies I've talked to are now figuring out the same thing, where 6 months ago, they had plans to expand an office building so they could put more people in it. And they didn't go forward with those because COVID hit and they put a lot of people at home working. And now they're thinking, I'm not sure we need to make as big an expansion. So you're definitely going to see some right sizing of real estate, I think, through this, not just in Jefferson City, but I think across our country. But that's an opportunity. Every time you find something is the glass half empty or half full? Those folks that own those buildings, we're going to find other opportunities and maybe use that as an attraction point, you economic developers, for companies who are looking to move to Missouri, and we have a building or an office space available for them. So that's going to give us some inventory. I hope we can turn that into a positive.
Very good. Okay, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about your next week. So today you will be working on the budget in session, and you will legally have to have that approved by 5 o'clock tonight. Is that correct?
6 o'clock tonight. Yeah, it's I call it's a Claudia Kehoe day. We're going to spend $30 billion in 8 hours. Now, don't anybody tell her I said that. For gosh sakes, don't be texting her right now.
I have her on the line, so she
Figures.
Okay, so what about next week? And what do you kind of see the legislative priorities? And in particular, we do have our Heartland Port Authority Board Chair on the line, Rick Mihalovich. And so he in the chat room wants to know about our port bill. Do you know anything about that?
So hello, Rick, to you. And let's talk about next week, and I'll talk about the port bill real quickly. We had a working business group from around the state, 21 different companies that we conducted out of the Lieutenant Governor's office, and we came up with 22 ideas. Dave Turner locally was on that working group, by the way. We came up with 22 ideas. So we had bankers, manufacturers, retailers, you name it. We had all kinds of people on this working group. 21 priorities came out of that, but 3 very specific priorities that I hope that we can either do next week or we might have to take up in a special session. One is near and dear to everybody's heart on the phone, I think, is the Main Street Fairness Act, internet sales tax. As sales tax revenues decline for municipalities, not just Jefferson City and Cole County, but communities all across the state think that's fair, that if I pay Sam Bushman sales tax, I should have to pay it if I buy that tie online. So the internet sales tax is a huge issue. Liability protection for companies. You have a lot of owners and general managers on the call today. As they open their businesses back up, they want some certainty that somebody doesn't come along with, and sorry if we have any trial attorneys on the line, but that somebody doesn't come along with some litigation that says, you didn't do the right thing, you made my client sick, they got COVID, now we're going to sue you, Mr. Restaurant, Mr. Hotel, Mr. Car Dealer, whatever. We've got to make sure that we give some protection to our businesses on liability. And then testing, what we talked about already a little bit, is also a big issue as we open up the economy. So those are being able to make sure we have enough COVID testing. So first 2 issues, very much a legislative issue. Third issue, more of a kind of a SEMA and supply chain management issue. To Rick's point, we've had a couple of conveyance bills that have come through the legislature. We had one in the Senate the other night that did not have his language on it. I know his language is over in the House, and we have a similar version in the Senate. I think getting legislation passed, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, next week in 5 days is going to be very difficult. But there are going to be ways to kind of weave and thread the needle on some pieces. The thing we're getting, that you're seeing in the paper that we're having, I don't want to use the word problem with, that is becoming a challenge, is because every senator and representative seeing this now 5-day window to get something done, they're trying to shove everything they can. We're getting these omnibus bills that have 70 or 80 pieces of legislation on it. You know, that's no good, folks. No matter if your piece of legislation that you like is on there or not, that's not good policy making. And so I think you'll see a lot of conference committees next week, because they're going to have a House and a Senate position, and one of those bills is going to have a whole bunch of stuff on there that shouldn't be on there. A lot of conference committees peeling that down to get to the core thing. I'm hopeful that with the right conversations, they've got great people leading the charge in that port bill, that core port piece can be a core piece of one of those legislation that goes forward. I know that I'll be working with Bernsketter, Rudy, and Dave Griffith to try to see if we can find a way to shepherd that through. Governor's supportive of it. We got that out of the way. There was some talk a couple of months ago that the governor was not high on it or whatever. Many people from the community, including myself, talked to him and made sure he understood what the economic advantage was to that. And he was never against it, but clarifying it with him was a big thing. So that was a big hurdle to get out of the way.
Thank you for all your help on that legislation. That will be a huge project for us in Jefferson City. And if that doesn't pass, unfortunately, it will put our project on hold for another year. So all of our
we understand it's a big one, and unfortunately, there's a lot of big pieces for different communities across the state. on that oven, and we're trying to see which ones we can get moved to the front burner.
So what about special session? Do you think there's been some rumblings of a special session? Do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking for the governor here. I'm just telling you, I think almost, I mean, if you look at what we traditionally do is we go out in mid-May, we come back for a couple of days for veto session in September, and then we start session again in the following January. I can't imagine that will be true this year. I'm not going to tell you any specific subject that I already know has popped up, but with this COVID issue, we've seen all kinds of things that we didn't know were priorities were priority. Broadband internet's one we just talked about earlier. There might be something statutorily we need to do to open up the access on that, or different things that are coming up before us, liability, litigation, Main Street Fair Net Act, internet sales tax, some of those things. If we can't get it done in the regular session, additional dollars that come from the feds that we need to authorize the governor of the state of Missouri to spend. My prediction is you'll probably see a few of those this year. Again, nothing that I have any inside scoop on. That's just Mike Kehoe being around for a while, seeing some things happen, guessing we'll see some of those. So
you being the big transportation proponent that you are, do you see anything in the future for transportation? Yeah, I mean, you know, I think this probably gives us the opportunity to move the federal conversation along, which Patrick McKenna and other folks that are on the Highway Commission or MoDOT folks would tell you has been the big piece that we've been kind of missing. I don't see a state proposal coming down this year. I still think there's one out there sometime for Missourians to approve. As you know, constitutionally, we have to let Missourians approve a bigger package proposal. But I know that on the federal level, it's one of the ways to get the economy rolling again. Again, infrastructure similar to tourism, it definitely provides a 4-to-1 return on the dollar. So every dollar you spend on a highway project, you get $4 back, and the ripple effect to the economy. That Democrat and Republican, I'm hearing from our federal delegations on both sides of the aisle, both House and Senate, that they think the environment is going to be right for a federal kind of proposal to move forward finally. So we are at 9:41, and I know you have to get off at 9:42. With our Zoom subscription, we have maxed out at 100 participants. So there have been people that wanted. Wait a minute, did I get more than Christy Campbell? You did get more than Christy Campbell. My day's complete. And I got to go in front of the mayor. If the mayor would have won, it would have been, we'd have been, 11:41, and the mayor would still be talking. So we want to, we'll probably go up a subscription and go to the next level, and hopefully maybe we can have you back on. But I just wanted to thank you so much for your time. I know you're extremely busy, especially in the last week of session. Does it cost money to go to the next subscription level? It does, yeah. Well, if you want, I'll go ahead and volunteer. Riley Chevrolet would be happy to sponsor that. Okay. They got a ton of money now. They're ripping down their old building apparently and all that stuff. So, you got the big insurance check, Kevin, Carrie, Mike, they'd be happy to sponsor that on behalf of the chamber. You can go ahead and put them down. Okay. If you want to contact them for us, that would be great. We don't, just verbal. So you don't need a PO. Okay. Any parting words from anyone? I don't see. Yeah. Hey, Jefferson City, you're a great community. You've been inspiring to the whole state, and I know to the governor and the first lady, who's kind of been, stuck here, trapped here, if you will. And so I will tell you that it's been a fantastic place for me to be. I never thought I'd be representing the whole state. The friends that we have and the business folks here in this community that have supported Claudia and I, you'll never be forgotten. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your time. We appreciate you so much. All right, you bet. See you guys. Happy session. Okay, we are going to switch gears, and Mayor Tergin, on.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I think we, received some really good information from Mike as far as the state's perspective. So let's switch gears and let's talk about us. So Jefferson City and phasing into getting retail open. And we talked a little bit about this last week. Salons, which are near and dear to my heart. But can you, just like what Mike did, just kind of give us an overview on where our city is with kind of the reopening of our community?
Sure, I would be happy to. And I will tell you how you can safely shop local, because we know shopping local is just so important now more than ever before. So we need to do that and do it safely. So how can you safely shop local? Well, I think that one of the biggest things is just to remember how this disease is spread so that we don't spread it. And Christy Campbell has done a fantastic job of teaching us that. So we all can be ambassadors for Christy and the health department and remind people not to touch their face and stand 6 feet apart and keep cleaning as much as possible and washing hands. So I know the mayor's hashtag is buckle up, phone down. And right now my new hashtag is don't touch your face. And I think that should be all of our hashtag right now. I'm also going to have a don't stand so close to my selfie. So I think that we can all just kind of separate from each other a little bit and we can stay safe and shop local. So I want to mention with Cole County Health Department, they have great information and guidelines on their website. So that is how we can all operate safely in business in Jefferson City. If you go to colehealth.org, you'll see right now we currently have 2 active cases. You'll see what our total case count is. You'll see the demographic information for those cases, and you'll see several great tips and information on that website. So if you haven't already, you definitely need to bookmark the colehealth.org. And talking about our orders, so currently we don't have a local order in Cole County. We have the state order, which is what we're following right now. And I want to thank Cole County for working so hard to have really great orders early on. And the orders that we did have, I feel that our orders were really able to balance both business and safety. So we were able to allow businesses to operate using more of a contactless method, such as curbside and delivery, much like what we did for restaurants. We were allowing non-essential businesses to do that, which is not the case in some of the counties that were surrounding us and other counties. And each county has to make the best decision for their own county and their own city. But I was very thankful that in Cole County and Jefferson City, that some of our small businesses were able to still operate at a minimum level if they could operate safely, and a lot of them really could. So I fully support and back Christy Campbell in the decision she made. The way we're set up, those directives came from Cole County Health Department because of state statute. That's how that works. But it doesn't mean that I didn't fully stand behind her, because I did, and we worked very well together. And I'm going to run through a few of our current city orders, and you can find these at jeffersoncitymode.gov. And a lot of them we already had in place, and now we've extended them through June 1st. So those include the ban on door-to-door sales is extended through June 1st. We know after the hailstorm, we had a lot of roofers coming through. We don't want them just coming up to people's doors and knocking on doors. So you cannot come, if you're going to be selling something, you can't come to your door without prior permission to be on your property. So we can't extend it forever for some reasons because of that rule, that law, the dynamic of it, but we can at least ban it temporarily. So door-to-door sales are banned through June 1. City boards and commissions are not meeting unless absolutely necessary. If they have business, then we welcome them to meet. We are also allowing extra temporary signage for businesses if they need it. We've extended liquor license renewals, and also there are no parade or event permits to be issued. Again, this is until June 1st. A couple other items is we have no parking enforcement, meaning no parking tickets and free parking in the Madison Street garage. So that all will resume on May 18th. So until then, you can park, and we did that to help offering some of the curbside delivery that was really heavily used. So we were trying to really work with our local businesses there. We also have bus fares are free, and that is likely through around June 1st. So we didn't want to have the exchange of money between the drivers, and we wanted to make that as safe as possible and encourage people to utilize that service. City Hall has reopened. It's the upper floor only, so basically the McCarty Street side. So if you have city business, you can certainly do it by phone. If you have to come into City Hall, you need to come in through the upstairs. The animal shelter is reopened by appointment only. So that information and press release is all on our website, jeffersoncitymode.gov. And then also something to note is that curbside recycling is back. That came back a couple of weeks ago. We do know that the bulky item pickup was canceled, but will likely be resumed later in the year. We don't have a date. And that's because they do those curbside pickups or the bulky item pickups in a lot of other cities as well. So it's not quite as simple as just picking a date now. So that will likely come back later in the year. I get asked that question a lot. And now turning the focus a little bit to the financial impact of what this is going to be with this pandemic. And, you know, we haven't dug into the budget yet. We will start that process very soon, but through this entire process, we have been watching the impact it's having on our budget with the city. We know that just like with the tornado, we have some unforeseen things that are going to happen that we're going to have to deal with. We already know that, and we know some things could be reimbursed, but a lot of them won't. We know it's not just an impact on the city government, it's an impact on the sales tax revenue. And since we have about a 2-month lag time on when we get our numbers, we haven't fully seen the effect of what that's going to be on our budget and on the community, but we know it's coming. We know, and I have to commend our city staff and our council members. They've always been extremely cautious when we've had situations such as the tornado, and now going into this, that we've budgeted, I think, to be prepared and having a strong fund balance. But there's going to be some very tough decisions to be made as we move forward with our city budget. And again, I think that's why it's so important to shop local and safely shop local and support our local businesses every time, no matter what. Even if you have to think, how can you shop local in order to avoid, you know, spending those dollars maybe in an online manner when you could possibly get it here locally. So we know that's important. We know that we've had people ask about things like use tax or the internet tax, like Lieutenant Governor Kehoe talked about. Those things are extremely important for us to be advocating for now more than ever. We've really realized how important our local businesses are and how that impacts our budget overall. And then something else interesting is Cole County did receive a grant from the state, and there's some funding there that will be shared with the local municipalities and cities. You probably saw that in the paper. I know Cole County is working through what those guidelines are and what that can be spent for. It would be spent more for COVID-related things that we would need for preparation and perhaps testing or whatever. We don't exactly know what the guidelines are, but we do know there will be some funds to at least help us be prepared with that. And then turning a little bit to the local projects, you talked about, you know, or we talked about what's the financial impact. So has everything stopped in the city? No, I mean, we're still moving forward as much as we can. Some of these projects are funded through different sources and have already begun. Of course, one of everybody's favorite projects is the corner building at Madison and High came down. In fact, it was probably one of the benefits is it came down at a time where it was very little disruption of traffic, because that was in the heart of the time where people really weren't getting out. So we are now going to be focusing on what can go back there in the future, but that was one thing that was able to come down. A couple other local projects, the Bicentennial Bridge is still moving forward as planned. That is mostly private donations, and that fundraising is still continuing, but most of that money has already been raised. So that project is moving forward as planned. In fact, it was just bid a couple of weeks ago. So that's in the bid process. And the goal is to have it completed by the Bicentennial, which is August of 2021, which is going to be here whether we have this or not. So whether the pandemic comes or not, we know that we have the Missouri Bicentennial, and I think it gives us also some projects for those of you that are homeschooling. You can go to Missouri2021.org and get some poster contest and all kinds of projects, art projects and that kind of thing for the Bicentennial. But the bridge itself is still moving forward. And also MSP redevelopment. I know that's something that we are continuing to move forward with that. As you know, we have 2 developers that are interested in that. And the good news is, despite the pandemic, that they're both still interested. So just yesterday, I have the latest and greatest on that. We sent out a press release, and you can go to, our website, jeffersoncitymo.gov, and you can fully view both of those proposals from both developers. And we are asking for your input. You can email input at msp@jeffcitymo.org. Again, all this information is on our website. So we want public feedback. We want to hear what you have to say. And we will likely also have a public hearing at our next virtual council meeting on I believe it's May 18th. So we'll have an opportunity there for people to call in or hopefully video conference in or submit written comments on that. So I say all of that because we are still moving forward with some of these projects, and it is important to know that we will come back and that we are working towards that. So what about our local events? We have no parade permits issued through June 1st, so we know we won't have any of that. Porch Fest was last weekend and it was done virtually. So we're finding out that we can do things during this time, and we can even expand our audience. We had people from out of state that were watching that would have never been here for Porch Fest. So getting creative, I think, has also had some benefits. So if you didn't see it, it's still out there at Porch Fest JCMO, and you can watch that on Facebook and YouTube. Okay, 4th of July, what are we going to do about that? Well, we are still working towards having it. It hasn't been canceled as of yet. But again, everything right now, as we know, we're kind of living in a tentative world on a tentative basis, and we're just going to have to adapt. But right now, we are still planning to have 4th of July, likely with some decreased events, but it's still planned. We are working closely with Cole County Health Department on what are some guidelines like extra hand washing stations and keeping crowds apart and keeping that distance. Again, keeping that 6 feet or more and keeping distance from people, which is difficult when you think of an event like that. So we feel like by June 1, we should know pretty firmly if we're going to have to make any major changes with doing that event or not. Same with Thursday Night Live. We know that that's not happening again during the month of May, but what will that look like for the future? So those are still, it's a little too soon to answer those questions, but we are all working on that. The concert Inside the Walls, for example, that has been postponed. So that was originally June 13th. The new date is Saturday, September 12th, and that is planned to be held at the prison. You probably already heard that it's Smash Mouth is our entertainer for this year. So very exciting. So mark your calendar for September 12th. And speaking of tourism, it's just so important that, you know, we have the penitentiary. I know Diane and Lieutenant Governor Kehoe talked about how important tourism is to our state. And I really think people will be looking for ways to get out locally more. And so maybe we can turn that into a positive and really explore our state. And even those that live here in Jefferson City, you know, once those tours resume again, and once that gets back up and running, you know, how can we shop local in our tourism decisions as well and discover things around mid-Missouri and do that even more. So sporting events, there are no tournaments, of course. We don't want people brought in from out of town, but we know that eventually that's going to resume. So we have some guidance recommended from Cole County Health Department, and I stand behind this, that, you know, having an occasional softball game is different than asking 100 teams to come in from out of state to converge on Jefferson City. So now is not the time for that. Anyone who has those ball fields should not be allowing that use. Backing up, I do want to say that Cole County Health Department has those recommended guidelines on colehealth.org. They have the recommended guidelines for restaurants, for salons and spas, for childcare facilities, for places of worship, for pools and gyms, for all other businesses, for mass gatherings, and sports recommended guidance. So check it out if you haven't already. Also with our local parks, what are we doing with that? You can go to jeffersoncitymo.gov, and there is a link there for parks, but I'll summarize that the link is limited open right now, where you can use the fitness center and track. Exercise classes are offered outdoors. There's a lot of times and details on here, so it's best to check the website or maybe call ahead before you go so you can see what's going on with that at jeffersoncitymo.gov, and then we have / the link or parks. Things like tournaments, it looks like all the athletic tournaments have been canceled through June 1. Looking at Ice Arena is scheduled to reopen June 1. Again, you know, a lot of this is tentative and keeping our distance. They're aligning with a phased in approach for a lot of this. Also, the golf course, Oak Hills, has remained open with limited service. And then there was one more, swimming pools. Where did I find? Swimming pools are scheduled to reopen. The plan is June 5th, but again, keeping extra precautions there. So that's what's going on with parks. Another local thing that's been moved, of course, well, not just local, but Election Day is June 2nd. has been moved from April. We do have a councilman, a new one, Hank Vogt. Congratulations to him, since that seat was unopposed. But there is a contested race in Councilman Mahalovich's seat, since he is termed out in the 2nd Ward. So reminder, we do have an election June 2nd. Also, something we have coming up is our tornado anniversary on May 22nd. So it's not like we haven't been through enough in the last year with this pandemic, but we had the tornadoes. So we are going to highlight that anniversary. We were going to do a huge celebration. Well, that's going to have to change. So we're doing it a little more virtual. We are going to have a caravan. We're going to have about 20 response vehicles going through some of the tornado affected area starting at 10 a.m. on May 22nd. And we're going to highlight some of our long-term recovery committee members. And we're asking that, since people can't come out at like a parade, it's going to be more of just highlighting maybe virtually and recording what we're doing. So what we would really like is for everyone to have, maybe make signs to put in their windows. They're using the hashtag Restoring Hope. And that's our theme this year for the tornado anniversary. So we ask that people make signs, put them in your windows, put them in your yards that say Restoring Hope that week of May 18th as we celebrate our tornado recovery and how far we've come in the last year. We will do something to symbolize the Habitat for Humanity Blissfield that they're working on. So we are working on that as well. And then along those lines, I wanted to thank the United Way. And we've had some local contributors that have given to a fund to help food service workers, such as Bernie Fechtel and Sharon Knott, that are giving back to those that are really struggling in those fields. So kind of to summarize all of that locally is, and as a mayor, I think that what's most important is just to respect others during this time and realize that our actions do affect others and they have an impact, whether it's positive or negative. And just trying to think of the good, like what ways are we better? What are some positive things that have come out of this? Well, our council meetings are now on Facebook Live. So there's instant entertainment on Facebook that we didn't have before. So, what are some things we're doing now that we didn't do before? And I think something else, and that if you're sick, stay home. I mean, it used to be if you're sick and you went to work and it's like, look, you're sick and good for you. You actually took the time to go to work and you're suffering. And for all of us, no. I mean, that is like a big no-no. It should have always been, and it really always was, but now it's got a whole new meaning. I mean, if you sneeze in your office, everybody's going to be running from you and kicking you out the door. So, I mean, basically, if you're sick, I mean, stay home, like duh. But now it's like, it's expected. And I think having that extra customer service that we didn't have before. So having that curbside, having that personal shopping, having that shopping by phone, having that delivery, taking things out curbside. Like we have taken customer service to a whole new level and figured out very creatively how to still do our business. So proud of our local businesses for doing that. And I think even showing today, having a record number of chamber coffee because you couldn't cram that many people in the room at the chamber. So these are things that now we're getting that message out more widely. So, wrapping up, I want to thank our Emergency Operations Center workers, Cole County Health Department, County Commission, EMS, all of our city departments, such as Finance, Public Works, Police, Fire, our local schools and our local hospitals for all they've done during this time. And thanks to the people who have remained kind, because it's really easy to be kind of rude and bold when you feel good. But then when you realize that, when you're sick and how we can spread this around, it's a whole different thing. So we just have to keep a positive attitude, respect others, because when we don't have our health, we have nothing, and there's no amount of money that can bring that back. So, we have to make our decisions based on, we want to be successful in business, but without our health, our businesses really don't matter. So we've got to balance that. And I think in Cole County, we've done a great job of that. So get out and shop local, but shop safely. Don't touch your face, keep doing your part, shop local, and don't stand so close to my selfie. So,
very good, Carrie. I did have one
Thank
question,
you. Yes.
regarding the signs, the Restoring Hope signs. Is there anyone
Yes.
organizing those signs where you can pick up a sign, or is everybody kind of it's up to yourself to do?
Great question. This is just kind of make your own. So if all you have is a piece of paper in your house, just get a little piece of paper and stick it on your window. If you have something like a piece of cardboard or poster board and want to put it in your yard, if you want to do some chalk art, we're just kind of telling residents just up to them, whatever resources they may have, scrap paper at home. and want to make a sign, we want to just kind of cover the community. And we're not just talking about the tornado affected area, but everywhere. And if you want to make signs and you have extra signs that you'd want to distribute in the tornado area that maybe they don't have, haven't had a chance to make their own signs, Ann Bax at the United Way would be the contact person for that. So I would say reach out to Ann.
Well, it has been a very eventful year for Jefferson City. The other day I was thinking we should make up t-shirts that says, tornado and COVID and hail, oh my. It's just like we've been through the gamut in the last year, and I have been extremely proud of our community and you leading our community, and the fact that, we have risen above, and I kind of get tired of, we're all in this together, because it's so cliche, but we are all in this together, and I am very, very proud of our community and proud of your leadership, and thank you so much for that. So we are 3 minutes over, so unless anybody has any burning questions in the chat room, which I'm not seeing, I just want to thank everyone, and thank you for, this is, like I said, been the largest of our Zoom Friday coffees, which we're extremely proud of. And to your point, Carrie, this is one thing we have learned to use Zoom, and hopefully we can continue utilizing this Zoom to get information out to our members in the future. So again, thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Please look for the stealth path in Jefferson City. I think several people have mentioned in the chat rooms that they've posted it on their Facebook pages. Let me see, there is an announcement from Holland Family Chiropractic is having a diaper drive for the month of May. So if you're interested in that, reach out to them. Other than that, I think that is it. And thank you again to everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.